Flins is the new Electro DPS coming out next patch, but as a lunar-charged character, you're probably wondering if he's any good without Ineffa. So in today's video, I'll be providing the calcs to answer that by deep diving into Flint's best teams and their power level. We'll also take a look at calcs for all his best weapons, artifacts, and constellations, and at the end, we'll conclude on his overall place in the meta and how reliant he truly is or isn't on Ineffa. Let's get started. But since Ineffa is currently on banner, if you're looking to save money going for her, I recommend checking out today's sponsor, Loot Bar. Loot Bar is a very safe and reliable top-up site where you can purchase Genesis crystals at up to a 25% discount compared to the in-game prices. Your data is completely safe during a transaction with Loot Bar, as all you need to provide is your in-game user ID. And with Loot Bar, you'll even receive points you can use to redeem rewards such as Welkin Moon or cash coupons. Loot Bar is widely used by even some of your favorite large creators like Jello Impact, and Loot Bar also has positive reviews from over 30,000 different users. So go ahead and click the link in the description to get started. New users will receive 25% off their first purchase. Thank you, Loot Bar. Now back to the video. Alright, so we went into detail about Flint's kit in my first impressions video, but to make sure we're all on the same page, I'll recap. He's an attack scaling Electro DPS that turns Electro-charged into lunar-charged. This focused around dealing direct lunar-charged damage, much like Ineffa with her A1. So like her, he's also effectively an elemental mastery scaling DPS as well. This kit includes various buffs to his EM and reaction damage bonus to make him effective at this. The overwhelming majority of his damage comes from his burst, which he casts twice thanks to his skill. Very similar to Veressa, it changes his burst to a special burst with no animation at a 30 cost. He uses it twice, so his burst cost is effectively 60. That's basically what you need to know, so let's now start talking about those teams. Right now, Flint's strongest team is looking to be with Ineffa, Ino, and Sucrose. Ineffa is a no-brainer to include. Flint absolutely needs a second Electro to fuel his burst, otherwise he just doesn't do much damage. Ineffa is the clear best character for this. She does great damage, provides a shield to cover your team's sustain slot, it even buffs Flint's damage greatly via her 14% lunar-charged multiplier and the elemental mastery buff she provides, so her synergy with Flint is just flawless. And although Ineffa already covers the second not-cry unit to maximize Moonsign, Ino is still the best Hydro. This is not only because she provides decent buffs for Flint with 60 elemental mastery and 35 lunar-charged damage bonus at C6, but also because her longest cooldown is only 14 seconds, and Flint's rotations are ideally 16 seconds, so Ino fits in perfectly, whereas other Hydro choices like Xingqiu, Furina, and Yelan, their cooldowns would make them not really work out well, and they don't provide any worthwhile benefits over her anyway. I think the fourth slot is Sucrose because she's actually great at buffing not only Flins, but also Ineffa at the same time, since they'll both benefit greatly from VV Reshred, and her EM buff is team-wide, which both Ineffa and Flins benefit greatly from. She'll also provide Flins with some attack percent from Thrilling Tales every other rotation, plus provides grouping for whenever mobbing scenarios are relevant. So those factors combined result in a very strong team with over 140,000 DPS, while having shielding, grouping, AoE, and no circle impact. There's not really much more you can ask for out of a team, so this is fantastic, and as long as you have Ineffa, there's no real reason to try and use any other team for him. Ino will likely be given for free at 6.0 and be on a Flint's banner, so you're gonna have her, and Sucrose is a 1.0 4-star that works just as good even at C0, so you'll likely have her as well. Thus, Ineffa and Flins are the only units on this team you should actually need to spend any Primo Gems on. And the two of them also have access to great craftable weapons if you need to save Primos not pulling weapons. So overall, Flint's strongest team is very accessible and F2P friendly, with the only real barrier being that Ineffa is the patch right before him, so if you haven't been saving, it might be hard to guarantee both. So because of this, I looked into all the best ways to use him without Ineffa until you are able to procure her on a rerun. Without Ineffa, it becomes even more important to use Ino as your Hydro to ensure you maintain maximum Moonsign. And then you of course still want a second Electro, of which there are two pretty good options. The most obvious one is Fischl. Not only will she provide plenty of particles to allow Flint to need little to no energy recharge, but she can also snapshot the crit rate from the Not-Cry DPS set, helping her to do some decent damage of her own, while also buffing Flint's lunar charge damage via the set as well. With Fischl, your first slot needs to be a sustain unit instead of Sucrose, since Fischl doesn't shield you like Ineffa did, but fortunately we have some good options. Bennett will provide attack, which is great for Flins, and Fischl will snapshot it as well to help her damage be better. Or you can use Lanyan and get Vivi and Thrilling Tales like Sucrose. You just won't get the large EM buff Sucrose provides, but Lanyan can provide 60 if you have C4. Their strong shield covering your sustain is worth the trade without Ineffa. So between Lanyan and Bennett, Lanyan actually calcs slightly higher, but do note in Multiwave the Vivi Shred issues could make Bennett better. The other good second Electro option is Sara. It's been tested and confirmed that Sara's C6 Electro crit damage buff actually applies to lunar-charged. Attack and crit are two of the best ways to increase direct lunar-charge damage, and Flins only takes about 10 seconds of field time, so we can get pretty good buff uptime out of Sara, which results in him doing similar personal damage to what he does with Ineffa, though of course at the expense of losing all the other things Ineffa does. If you do use Sara, I'd highly recommend using Bennett, as both Sara and Lanyan would want to be cast right before Flint's into rotation, but that just doesn't work out. But as you can see, you can expect to do about 25% less team DPS without Ineffa, which is a big loss, but for losing a dedicated support, that's honestly not that bad, and these numbers are still in the same ballpark of what some the other teams of high-tier DPS do, like Arlecchino, Nuvolette, Mualani, and so on. And that's while having a very accessible and FTP-friendly team. Most people have Bennett, and if using Lanyan, she was free from Lantern Rite and will be again next year. Plus, she doesn't need any constellations. The EM from her C4 isn't that big, especially since you don't get it every rotation anyway. Your C2 makes her shield a lot more durable, but it's still good enough for most enemies, even at C0. And Fischl and Sara are both old units that anyone who's been playing for a while likely has. Although Sara, she won't be good if you don't have her C6, but Fischl will still be perfectly fine. And since Flins, as mentioned, has access to a good craftable weapon, you can play him in a team where you don't need to spend primos on literally anything other than himself. With him on the craftable, with the C0 Fischl, C0 Lanyan, and C0 Ino, the team DPS comes out to around 90,000, which is very respectable for a completely bare-bones team like this. That's more than enough to clear most content other than Dire Stygian Onslaught, without feeling weak or underpowered, and over time you'll be able to get the things you need to greatly strengthen the team. So since you can put together a team like that right after getting Flins, I actually believe he's an extremely free-to-play friendly character, and a great pull for newer players. But to quickly circle back to using Flins with Ineffa, one quick thing I want to mention is, I tried calculating him in an Hyper Bloom team with Llama. With fast enough Hydro, you can maintain full Thundercloud uptime for your lunar charge damage, while getting Hyper Blooms in addition. I know only applies Hydro every 2.1 seconds, so I don't think it will work with her, so instead I tried using Yelan, assuming that she'll be enough Hydro, which I'm not sure she is, but assuming she is enough, this is strong, but it's just inferior to using Sucrose and Ino while being a more expensive team, so there's not really any reason to use Flins in a team like this. That pretty much covers Flint's team, so let's look into building him, starting with the weapons. His signature is naturally best, with Scarlet Sands about 12% behind as second place. After that, pretty much all the stat-stick 5-star polems such as Homa, Jade Spear, even oddballs like Vortex and Skyward Spine, they're all around the same. For 4-star weapons, an R5 Balad is best, but if you don't buy the Battle Pass or never refined this weapon, Tama Yoritai is great as it can cover your energy requirements while also providing 40% attack. And if you don't have it or don't need ER in your team, then use the new craftable polearm. For artifact sets, please just farm the 6.0 DPS set. It's far better than anything else you can use, not just for Flint's damage, but it also provides 20% lunar charge damage bonus, so it'll be buffing your Ineffa at the same time. And you really want the support set from the same domain anyway, so there's no reason not to be farming them. Just save up your Fragile Resonance and farm the sets in Stygian Onslaught once it's out. You can use one of the other listed sets such as Gilded Dreams to start with, but even a mediocre build on the new DPS set is going to be better. Then for your main stats, you want Attack, Attack, Crit. Lunar Charge is basically all of Flint's damage, so he does not care about using an Electro Goblet at all. And if you have Flint's signature weapon, then using an Attack Circlet and going triple attack is surprisingly viable, only 3 to 4% behind. Though keep in mind that would require having a double crit attack circlet that actually rolled well. You can use an EM stance instead of attack, but it's far enough behind to where I wouldn't recommend it. Though if you're using Scarlet Sands or playing Hyper Bloom, then it's equal to attack. And lastly, if your energy requirements are high in your team, ER Sands is good. Finally, let's look at Flint's constellations and his vertical investment priorities. C1 to C3 are pretty strong, but nothing too crazy. C1, you will want to ensure that if you get this, you start building more energy recharge on him than C0, because C1 basically lets him get 3 bursts instead of 2, which increases his total energy cost to 60. It does give some energy refund, but it's less than that extra 30 cost, so the ER requirements go up, but it's still a large increase despite that, and his strongest early constellation. Then his C4, it's decent for a C4, but not worth the cost. C5 is useless. And then C6 is very simple and straightforward, just giving an additional multiplier to his lunar-charged damage, and a smaller one to the whole team as well, so that will increase your Ineffa's damage at the same time. It's pretty good, but nothing crazy compared to a lot of other modern DPS C6 effects. So if you want to vertically invest into Flins, should you go for constellations? Your first priority should always be getting Ineffa, but once you do have her and still want to invest further, I'd recommend getting Flins to C1 R1. This should be more than enough for him to feel overpowered and be able to comfortably clear bosses on Dire, Stygian Onslaught, as long as the boss mechanic doesn't prevent it. You can go to C2 R1 if you want to push it even further beyond and have an easier time, but do keep in mind you should probably be saving for Columbina, as she's almost certainly going to be a massive upscale over Ino. And that's pretty much all you need to know, so what's the verdict? Currently, Flins should basically be the third strongest DPS. He's decently ahead of Veressa, but quite a ways behind Skark and Mavrika. But the expectation right now is that Columbina is going to be the premier Hydro support for all Lunar reaction-based teams, and it's a very real possibility that once we get her, Flins will reach that same tier with Skark and Mavrika. And also, one thing I want to mention is that, while Flins is looking to be stronger than Veressa, this does not at all mean that he power crept her. Both are Electro DPS, but Electro is an extremely versatile element with many different team archetypes that use completely different supports. Flins and Veressa do not share a single teammate in common, so if someone already had Veressa, that does not invalidate Flins for them at all, or if someone got Flins, that doesn't invalidate Veressa for them either. You can just use both. So yeah, that's all, but I'm curious to know your thoughts, so let me know in the comments below. You can also join my Discord to communicate with me and my community directly. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing for more.